Isn't it funny how RT, the Mail, the Sun, the Mirror, Sky, the Express, they all had articles about Tommy's arrest and subsequent jailing, and now they've scrubbed them from the internet. They're not anywhere to be found. It's like it hasn't even happened. There was a D-notice put on the media reporting on his incarceration, and that's where he is right now. I mean, we need to be able to get access to him, because for a start, his incarceration was completely unjust. It was a complete perversion of justice. You know, it was contempt of court for breaching the peace. But he wasn't actually shouting anything. He was just reporting on things that were already in the public domain. This is a spurious jumped-up charge, if ever there was one, from a kangaroo court. And there was a photograph clearly showing collusion of the judge and the CPS and the police. They were all standing together in the window. What's going to come of that information? Luckily, there are some people prominent around the world that are talking about it, like Geert Wilder, for example. I mean, these people are outraged. Why hasn't Nigel Farage talked about it? He should be outraged. I mean, he supports the far-right, quote-unquote, parties in Europe, but doesn't actually support the quote-unquote far-right people over here. Well, of course, they're not far-right, are they? But Tommy was the greatest campaigner for free speech, and obviously he had to be shut down because free speech is being shut down, isn't it? This is the state's way of cleansing problem people that they don't want talking anymore, that are waking up too many people, that are raising too many people's awareness of the problems that the media wanted to hide and wanted to cover up, and has been working with the police and the government, the judiciary, and George Soros money and all the campaign money, etc., from the donors and the banks. They've all been working to cover up the link between migrant crime and Islam, and the actual crime that happens, you know, all the terrorism and Islam, and anything and Islam. I mean, they're covering up as we're being converted to Sharia-compliant society, which accepts the horrible things that is outlined in the Quran. I don't know how that could be hate speech. You know, wanting to stop that, how could that be hate speech? You know, wanting to actually raise awareness of this becomes breach of the peace. That's an abuse of power. It's not the first time they've abused their power, but it's the most egregious example I've ever seen. And this has probably pushed people over the edge. This is probably the tipping point where the state has gone too far. Tommy shouldn't have to be there doing the media's job. The media should have been there covering it because it's in the public interest. The public are massively interested in finding out what happens to these grooming gangs since the BBC started obscuring the details about it, but it was top trending item on Twitter. Yeah, it's a public interest story, and there was no press there reporting on it. Only Tommy Robinson was the only one there reporting on it. And he's done for breach of the peace for doing that. If that's not corruption, I don't know what is. And all the left-wing, quote-unquote left-wing people like Owen Jones gloating about it, do they understand the details about the case? Do they understand how this is a dangerous precedent to be set, how the precedent was set ages ago, and now we're in a totalitarian police state? Do they care anymore? Or are they so obsessed with destroying the right, and who they perceive as the right, and the new Nazis, and all the people that don't like social justice warriors or safe spaces, that they don't actually care what happens to the country anymore? They don't care about solving the world's problems anymore. They just want to destroy their ideological opponents, and shut them down. And the rule of law has just been completely forgotten about. It's been completely ignored, completely flouted. So this is a disgrace. It's a disgrace that it's not in the mainstream media. It's not been reporting that he's in jail for 13 months. And it's a disgrace that it's an international disgrace, not just a national disgrace. It's disgraced the reputation of England. It was already completely ruined. And UK, you know, journalists that were going to do anything, that were going to be of any worth to the future of human civilization, have already been banned and ostracized and outlawed from visiting this country again or entering through the borders because they get arrested and interrogated and told that they're Christian extremists. Yeah, the world's having a problem with Christian terrorism, isn't it? You see, the difference between the Quran and the Bible is that Muhammad preached about starting a war, Jesus preached about forgiveness. So whether religion is the problem, and it is, and I don't like all religions and they are all control systems, Islam does seem to be the worst. So I really don't know what the solution is. We need a whole new government, we need a complete purge of the police force and new police put in, and we need to expose common purpose for what it's done to the police and what it's done to the judiciary and everything, and stop funding it and stop funding the white helmets and try and restore some sanity. Oh, and Brexit in 2023, yeah. I'll believe that when I see it. And that's ridiculous in itself. But as I've said before, there is no sanity because we're in a hostile state now run by a fascist dictatorship government using the promise of Brexit to obtain Henry VIII powers and exploit the people for globalist paymasters.